Dillon Brooks was one of the big moves the Houston Rockets spent big bucks on this offseason. He's out in Vegas at Summer League hanging out with the Houston Rockets. He spoke at Shoot-Around yesterday, and this was the newest Rocket being asked how being in Memphis for the start of his career helped prepare him for his role now with the Houston Rockets.
I feel like it's like almost the exact same team from 3-4 years ago. They kind of have the same type of players. Jalen Green, like Ja Morant. Jabari is like Jaren. These young guys that can expound the things and be one of the best or the best in the league. So
we'll start with his comments there. Do you agree with Dillon Brooks that the Rockets are the Memphis Grizzlies from a couple of years ago, and if that is what they end up being, is that good enough for this rebuild?
Yeah, hell yeah, that's good enough for this rebuild. I mean, the Grizzlies have been the 2 seed in the West in each of the last 2 seasons. You're telling me you wouldn't sign up for that right now? Now, I'm only signing up for the on-the-court happenings for the Memphis Grizzlies. I don't want Jalen Green to be like Ja Morant off the court and get suspended twice within the span of 2 months. I don't want any part of anything like that. That would be a disaster because that might be the thing that derails Memphis's rebuild that's been going really, really well. But no, on the court, I would absolutely sign up to be the next Memphis Grizzlies. They had 3 straight losing seasons. They got top 5 picks in back-to-back years. And then, boom, the last 3 seasons they've made the playoffs. And as I mentioned, they've been the 2 seed in the West in the last 2 years. Of course, the playoff success hasn't been what they've wanted, but clearly they were able to go from, Cody, one of the worst teams in the league to one of the better teams in the league in not too long of a time. It's exactly what you should want the Rockets to do.
If Dillon Brooks is indeed correct, then the play-in tournament should be where the Rockets are this year. And the reason I say that is, looking back at Memphis, Brooks got there in 2017, 2018. The Grizzlies had 22 wins. They didn't get Ja Morant until 2019. Well, that year they were the 9th best team in the West. Well, if you're the 9th best team in the West, you're in the play-in tournament. So if you already have the Ja Morant, okay, you already have that level of player. And by the way, they were the 9th best team in the West in Ja's rookie year. Now, he was the rookie of the year, so he was really, really good. But this is the 3rd year of Jalen Green. Well, the 3rd year of Ja Morant, he was the most improved player in the entire NBA. Mm-hmm. And so if you feel like, indeed, Jalen Green is that good, and Dillon Brooks is correct, then you should have lofty expectations for where this Rockets team can go. It's not wild to think that a 15, 18, 20-game improvement is there if indeed Dillon Brooks is correct. I don't quite see it to that level. I could see where maybe they're a year or 2 away from that, but certainly if Brooks is correct, if there's a lot to point to with these young guys and he sees a lot of potential in them, then maybe not this upcoming season, but the next season, that should be a team that's ready to make a lot of noise in the Western Conference, far more noise than they've made in the past 3-4 seasons combined.
I don't know if they have the Ja Morant on this team. I don't know if Jalen Green's that level of player.
I'm not buying that aspect of it for sure.
I think Jalen Green could get better, and I think with better players around him, or true point guard now in Van Vliet, and Ime Udoka being a legitimate coach, he could get better, but let's not discredit or discount just how good Ja Morant has been. I know he's obviously been in the news with the suspension and the stupid things he's done away from the court, but this guy has already been an all-NBA player. He's been to the All-Star game twice. He was the Rookie of the Year, as Cody brought up. I don't know if Jalen Green is that level of player. Is he anywhere close to Ja Morant? Because you can make a case when Ja Morant's on the court, he's a top 10 player in the league. I don't know if Jalen Green's ever going to be that guy.
Yeah, it's a lofty comp, and it's also not a great comp because they don't really play the same position. Ja Morant's way more of a true point guard and generally leads his team in assists, and that's just not Jalen Green. That's not who he's been asked to be, and he'll never be asked to be that guy for the Rockets. Y'all just mentioned the Rockets brought in a point guard this offseason to pair with Jalen Green to try to bring the most out of Jalen Green. So they play different positions, and I did find this interesting. Look, I wouldn't bet on Jalen Green being as good as Ja Morant. Ja Morant, like you said, Jake, is one of the best 10 players in the NBA when he's actually on the floor. He is a special, special talent. I look at the scoring averages for these two guys in their first 2 years. They're not that far off. Year 1 for Ja Morant, 18 points per game. Year 1 for Jalen Green, 17 points per game. Year 2 for Ja Morant, 19 a game. Year 2 for Jalen, 22 a game. Actually, he had better scoring output than Ja Morant did in his second year in the league. Now, Ja did all of the other stuff a little bit better than Jalen, mainly the assist numbers and some of the other metrics as well, but Jalen had a better year 2 scoring-wise than Ja Morant did. And as you mentioned, Cody, it was year 3 where Ja Morant became the most improved player in the league, and that was when he made his first All-Star team and was in that All-NBA conversation. So I wouldn't bet on all of that stuff happening for Jalen Green, but I don't think it's the craziest prediction in the world to think that Jalen Green could be an All-Star caliber player in his 3rd year like Ja Morant was in Memphis a few years ago.
Something else that was pretty similar is Ja's shooting took a step back in year 2, and then it took a big jump forward to some of his best in year 3. That's something that has to happen from Jalen Green. Even if it's not always turning into Ja Morant or that level of player, Jalen Green's shooting has to just take a tremendous step forward this year from what it was last year, because it took a little bit of a step back. Yes, the ultimate in-game, the box score, from a point standpoint was better, but just the consistency that he needs to put together from a shooting standpoint, that's got to take a big jump forward and a big step forward. And you would hope that with a better role and better players around him, he has that opportunity, and he does take that opportunity and indeed improves to that level.
Yeah, that's what Memphis did, right? And they did a lot of theirs through the draft more so than free agency. They just hit on a ton of draft picks, even late first-round picks like Desmond Bane turned out to be really, really good for them. That's what helped Ja Morant elevate his game. So this is obviously the best offseason the Rockets have had in a few years now. All that extra talent around Jalen Green will hopefully make life easier for him. He's going to get better shots, which should improve that field goal percentage like you were talking about.
The other player that Dillon Brooks comped in that interview, or that answer to the question we just played, was he said that Jabari Smith is like Jaren Jackson Jr., who's been one of the best young players in the league. He made the All-Star team this past year. He's led the league in blocks twice. He's been the defensive player of the year now. Like, he's that level of defender. And I remember when Jabari Smith was coming out, one of the things we lauded him for is his ability to be able to guard all 5 positions. Like, I hope to God Dillon Brooks is right, because I think you'd sign for Jabari Smith to beat Jaren Jackson Jr. today if that's what he's going to end up being.
That one's an even tougher comp, because it feels like Jackson is way more traditional big man than Jabari. Jabari's more that hybrid big man that could do a little bit of what Jackson does, but not to the level that Jackson does. So for me, that one was, but I think really what Brooks is trying to tell you is 2 young stars and then me and everybody else. And that's kind of what he's ultimately the message. Hey, 2 young stars, me and everybody else, and we're going to make this whole thing work. I think that's the big aspect of it.
Yeah, I think so too. And I guess Jabari and Jaren kind of look alike from a body type standpoint. Like, Jabari 6'10", Jaren 6'11". They're both kind of skinny, although Jaren has put on a lot of weight in his NBA career. Like, I don't know. I mean, they're very different players. Like,
one was a 4th overall pick, the other was a 3rd.
Yeah, that's a very similar thing too. That you're talking about a similarity, not a difference there.
Yeah, I'm just talking about like their
top picks.
Yeah,
got
they're
it.
both top 4 picks.
Okay,
similar body type.
Yeah. I mean, look, JJJ is a much better defender. There's no doubt about that. Like, Jabari did a lot of good things defensively in his first year, but like you said, I mean, we're talking about the defensive player of the year a season ago. We're talking about a guy who's led the NBA in blocks in back-to-back seasons. That's not ever going to be Jabari Smith Jr. Now, I think Jabari, once again, did some good things on defense last year, and I think he's going to be even better this year. But the defense will never be what Triple J is in Memphis. I will say this, though, in Jabari's defense, I don't think Triple J is as versatile of an offensive player as Jabari Smith could be.
No.
He's not as good of a shooter as Jabari. Now, Jackson spends more time in the post. He's a better finisher at the rim than Jabari is right now. But, like, Jabari spends a lot of his time outside the three-point line. And he's just sort of different in the way that he goes about his offense. Hopefully, Jabari develops his offensive game and has a little bit more versatility to it. But even right now, I think he's more versatile on that end of the floor than Jaren Jackson Jr. is. So, yeah, I mean, I guess it's easy to compare because we're talking about high draft picks and guys who play similar positions and this and that. But neither of those are perfect comps. But like y'all said, it's just here are the 2 guys, here are the 2 focal points, the foundational pieces of the rebuild. And then me, Dillon Brooks, and a few of these other guys are the supplemental pieces who can actually make this thing work out like it did in Memphis.